Hey everybody, it's Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner and creator of FSW, the future stars of wrestling here in Las Vegas, Mr. Joe DeFalco. Joe, how you doing this week, man?
Words can't describe it. It's excitement galore.
Uh, and that's just for the Phillies Astros World Series, I assume, right?
Oh, when does that start?
I don't know. I think it's over, isn't it?
Yeah, I watched a little of the game yesterday.
Uh,
I could care. It's teams I don't care about. I love baseball, but
yeah,
if the Mets or Yankees are in, I'm watching every inning of the games that I can. Now it's
yeah.
just like, oh, I happen to be home, and thankfully the TV is always stuck on Fox 5. So whether it's the Wendy Williams show or Sherry Shepherd now, I don't stray from Channel 5. So I watch the news and I watch the Moore show, back to the news. So unless I'm watching one of my 17 streaming services, watching Fox 5.
I'm sure that includes the Masked Singer, right? That's your go-to.
No, when it comes to night, I'm usually watching the streaming stuff. So it's like
Right.
that early morning, you wake up, you just leave the news on
Yeah,
because unless I'm highly invested in a TV show
sure.
that not watching with the wife because we watch so much of this stuff together. So
Right.
there's certain things she'll watch, certain things I'll watch. Like I'll highly recommend Pop Star, the Andy Samberg movie on HBO Max. I thought it was hilarious. But you got to be an Andy Samberg guy. It's kind
Yes.
of like, it's like Sandler. Some people
Yeah.
can't stand and most stuff I find with him extremely amusing.
Yeah. I think that for
So
me,
thumbs up for the Pop Star with Andy Samberg.
yeah, never stop stopping, which is one of the best titles, and it was a great film. And he won me over with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I thought that series was just the perfect vehicle to where you stop thinking
Yeah,
of,
I watched every episode of that one too.
yeah, you stop.
Always been a Sandberg fan.
Yeah, it's a different concept for him, and you could see his valuable, commodity in his product now. And look, he's making Corona commercials with Snoop Dogg. Like, how much better
What do you
does
mean?
that
He's the star of that show.
get?
Snoop Dogg's the co-star.
uh, you know, we're talking about being a famous person or being exposed or having a brand and Helloween just took place on Saturday.
Yeah, obviously I'm a brand.
You are a brand. So, did you have any idea that Spider would pull out his Joe DeFalco costume? What was going on in your mind when you saw this go on, man?
Well, the thing is, I saw him in the office, and it's like, okay, he's putting this ball cap on and the beard. Oh, I'm being used. So I'm like, oh, okay, great. So I'm not paying attention to it, And then he comes out, and it's like now he's doing the whole shtick. He could have added the belly for authenticity, but what got me was the salmon shirt. Pulling out
Yeah,
that salmon shirt. You're going full. You're going full board. It takes a little work to find a salmon shirt.
absolutely, man. It
And
uh
once again, I'm giving out the rub, and now spiders become relevant thanks to being me for Halloween.
and you got to watch out now because this is a perfect example of other companies now bringing in the faux pas Joe DeFalco
Yeah, I got
to
I got to watch out. Spider might be making a small fortune working the indies
right.
as me.
Everyone can bring you in as the commissioner or as a broad. He could
You
he
know,
could
he,
literally
you
call
know,
back as you.
if he wore that gimmick years ago in his match with Damian Drake, they may not have actually cheered the guy who turned on Spider. His career may have went in a whole different direction. We had them wrestle, and Damian Drake did a dastardly thing, and everybody cheered Damian Drake. But if Spider was dressed like me, forget about it. He might have been the guy to go on to be leader of the Unguided.
Oh man, I know that he worked. He had this in mind for a couple months, so it came off really good. It was great to
He even
see.
got a Joe chant, you know.
Yeah, to see the reaction from the fans. I mean, now with that idea, with the reaction of the fans, with what you saw, I know you're always busy during shows because you're, producing the show. But is there any consideration? Have you gotten any bit of an itch to be like, yeah, maybe I want to get a little more involved in stories?
No, none whatsoever. It's like if it makes sense, if we put the Boricua posse together with the Puerto Ricanos, that was the talk in the past with Limelight and Jay Vidal and the Samoan Rican Toa Leona. You know, I would have led that faction.
I'd like to see that. That would be a bitchin' faction too. Um, the gimmick battle royal. Obviously, it was a highlight that fans love. Fans also love dressing up, coming to the show as well. For you, when you see these costumes, did anything stick out to you in terms of either the fans or the wrestlers that you thought were pretty good versions of either your favorite wrestler or a costume that you saw this weekend?
Well, you had to be impressed with the Furman crew's past, present, and future Remy Marcel's, which I guess really would be the past and the present because we don't know what the future lies. But
Right.
there was the different variations of him that
Yeah.
you know, and Heather looked just like him with the big fro and
Well,
and the purple suit and stuff. So yeah, and that's the thing. It was like a few years ago. I thought, the gimmick battle royal had run its course. We probably didn't have as many students, so we probably did like 6 or 7 in it. And I'm like, yeah, you know, this is it. It's kind of done with. And then all of a sudden, it was like the fans were like, "Oh, gimmick battle royal this year, right?" And it's like, yeah, sure, because in reality, it's a way that the students who never get on shows yet can actually get their feet wet.
yeah.
And as Chris Bay said, that was his debut, was in the gimmick battle royal, and Damian Drake was a Jeff Hardy when he first did it, and even Funny Bone was in it as like CM Punk when he'd been established. So we always had a good core of guys that would do it, and like Robbie and Mondo always enjoy doing it. And so it's like, how do you not do something that's over with the fans?
Yeah.
It's an easy match, as I always jokingly say, and it isn't false that the intros last longer than the match. Like
Yeah.
that's the one thing where if you take 45 seconds from, we had 13 guys, so that was 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and the match lasts 5 or 6. So but it's a good segment. We only did 7 matches, so the show
Right.
flowed. But we also had some good serious matches mixed
Yeah.
in. We did the match that kind of led into the casket thing with Santana doing his performance, and he came out and again, you can't do Santana Jackson every single show doing his dancing to the ring and doing his routine.
Right.
So, being that he hadn't been on our show in a long time, there was newer fans who never got to witness it, and that's the sports entertainment part.
Right.
Our fans are very WWE-ish, to where they like the storylines and the characters mixed in with good wrestling. The week before we did a traditional, super show with Mecca.
Right.
So to do the same exact show with far lesser talent, how exciting is that?
Right.
So now we got the Halloween thing, and it's polar opposite. The regular fans, the hardcore ones, they look forward to that show. Like they know when we do a New Year's show, I know they're going to be there because
Yeah.
that's where they want to spend New Year's with the fam, and that's why we came up with the fam shirts, because a lot of those people, look at the Furman crew. None of them, other than Bradley and George, knew each other before coming to FSW.
Right.
And now they hang out, and we should get residuals from the bingo trivia what all those people go to. Everything's put through the fan page because all these people have become fans and friends of each other, and they hang out together, similar with the kids class, where these people have made lifelong friends because it's hard to find fans of wrestling when you're 13 years old and 15 years old and 10 years old, and they bond together. And we've seen it when our kids class kids have gone on to wrestle on the regular shows. All of a sudden you see some of the kids you hadn't seen in 5 years because they don't wrestle anymore, but they still come because they're their friends and they hang out with those people. So as a community service, we've done some great things by starting FSW.
Yeah. And speaking of good matches and kids who came from the kids class, you had a headlining match with Bodie going over there and beating Action Braxton. Let me ask you, when you look at just the match itself and the reception of Bodie in general, how do you try to balance it out for him so that he realizes that he's got that special talent, but you can't just glide on that. You have to continue to grow and to build and to not just stay in this moment, but go to the next level over the next couple of years.
Well,
You've never really, have you ever had someone that young, in a position where they are now?
Well, no, because he's 15 years old and he headlined a high octane basically show.
Yeah.
And he's put in the work. He's weight training, he's growing. And I know Sin Bodhi talks to him, but and sees a bright future, as does all the other trainers. But even I had to sit down with him this past week, and it's like, don't overexpose yourself. You're a special commodity. If you are who you were today and you were 24 years old, you would be treated differently. But you're only 15 years old. You can count on one hand and chop 3 fingers off on how many guys or girls are that age that are producing at that level. Nick Wayne didn't really start getting okay till he was like 16 years old.
Yeah.
And even though he wrestled, he really didn't get the exposure. Kind of people knew who he was. Like, we used him at the anniversary show. Yeah. And that was because, Oasis was living in Washington. He's like, hey, I got Nick Wayne, blah, blah, blah. We put him in a pre-show. We're like, I didn't know. I had no idea who he was, I saw him, tall, lanky kid. He had braces. I'm figuring he's like 18 or 19 years old because Nick Wayne wasn't known for GCW and all this other stuff at that point. Right. And then it was like, oh, yeah, and at that time, I think he might have been only 15 or just turned 16 years old. And it was like, holy shit. And, we saw, it was like, wow, this kid's good. And Bodie's on that same trajectory. The funny thing is, I don't think there's any footage of it, but we did an EC3 seminar that day, and they paired up, and there was different matches, and everybody put over Nick Wayne and Bodie. Right. They did the match, for EC3, and and that was when Bodie's 14 years old, right. or maybe 13. It was the 2-night anniversary show, so I believe it had to be June of 2021. So Bodie just turned 15 within the last 6 months. So he had to be 14 years old. Wow. And I'm pretty sure he was in the pre-show match too, So trying to explain to Bodie, yeah, I get it. You're the young prodigy. So other companies, especially other companies in town, they want to utilize the guy. But it's like, don't just take whatever. And it isn't me being selfish saying, hey, we trained you at FSW. And we've had this discussion before. No, I don't love our guys wrestling every other show in town. I feel it makes them less valuable. But for a guy like Bodie, who's a special commodity, like I said, putting him in with Sin, putting him in with Remy, putting him in 6-man tags with Sky High, the idea is he is this special attraction. But you can't be a special attraction if you're over there and you're just another guy putting over their champions and putting over their main guys.
Right.
Pick and choose what you're doing. Because it isn't a matter of money. Nobody's paying Bodie hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but the fact is it's a 15-year-old now getting paid to wrestle. So ego-wise, even when you're 15, it's like, hey, obviously it's going to make you feel good. It's kind of like with Ring Warriors. Hey, we want to bring you in as a consultant, and we're going to pay you this on top of the ring rental. Makes you feel good. Like, hey, maybe but again, there's always ulterior motives.
Right.
In that case, the ulterior motive is, hey, we're going to use your guys and they're going to go 1-9 on the show. And the only guy who was going to win at the time was going to be Hammerstone, and he beats Damian Drake. So he beat our own guy. It was like, wait a second. We got Chris Bay, we got Hammerstone, we had Shea and Tito, we had the 1%, and they're all jobbing out to these guys who've been in the business for 20 years who haven't really done a lot.
Right.
And then it kind of changed after the fact with other people, and they realized what they had. But having me there, helped also me bring in our guys because I recommended a lot of talent to get on that show. And, they got paid, better money to come in. And even guys we weren't using like Tito and Shea, like, hey, here's a really good tag team on the West Coast. They're not going to be crazy amount of money. And they brought them in, and the 1% were our tag champs. And it's like, they're losing to everybody from Florida who's being shipped in from when that company used to run. So you have to be aware, and at the time I'm 53 years old. So imagine telling a 15-year-old how special you are, and we love to have you, and this, that, and the other thing, and we're going to give you this high-profile match.
Yeah.
It's great, but when you go there and wrestle 8 times and lose 7, it makes other people who are watching it think, oh, okay, yeah, I guess he's all right, because you're going to go in there to lose. And wins and losses don't necessarily matter, but in those situations, it's usually a one-off match that you're never doing again. There's no storylines built behind it. The Bodie Braxton faction Sky High thing has been on and off for the last 6 months. Yeah. So we use this as the culmination, and this was always the plan. We were going to do the lumberjack match at the last High Octane, but the faction got called to work Booker T's show. Right. So again, I'm a guy who's, hey, when you have a really good opportunity, now that's a really good opportunity. They're bringing you down to Texas and wrestle for a WWE guy who's currently still works for the company. So if you impress him, there's always that chance you might get that look-see. And every angle you can get at getting looked at, you have to take advantage of. So I'm 100% behind those guys going there. And it's like, well, we have a Helloween show. We do a lumberjack match. And then, it gave me more time to, hey, let's have this idea of, because again, who likes the faction? Nobody but the people in the faction. So if it's a lumberjack match, who's going to be on the other side? Well, everybody loves Bodie and everybody hates the faction. So pretty much the entire locker room was lumberjacks for Bodie. And then that played into the finish of the match, and it worked perfectly.
Yeah, and at 15, he gets a Bret Hart WrestleMania 10.
Yes. Dude, relax. He beat Braxton. It wasn't like he beat somebody good on the roster. You know what I mean?
Oh, Braxton, you still got that case, man. Case.
It's like when Bret Hart beat Hakushi. You're not going to give him that standing ovation put on your shoulders. It's I could see it when like Barry Horowitz beat Hakushi, for jobbers all over the world. That was a huge moment.
Right. Oh man. With the faction, uh, any announcement with them for the upcoming Against All Odds?
Yeah, they're going to all be in the Rumble.
There we go.
So the entire faction will be fighting 26 guys.
And any indication from Braxton on using that case?
If he did, he wouldn't be telling me. I think he likes holding on to that case because if he's one of the few who cashes in and fails, well, then where is he on the pecking order?
Sure.
Like he has made himself, top of the pecking order, and he has a year to do it. So he can be a main player for a year. Yeah. And never win a match, and he's still a top player.
So basically, like Ice's No Limits run.
No, Ice defended his title a lot. It was after he lost the No Limits title that he kind of went into hiding for a while.
I was just thinking that pandemic just put on so much time for Ice's championship reign.
Well, yeah. In that situation, I guess if he had wrestled, he would have had to wear a mask or something. I remember, him bringing up something about a family member, and that's kind of why he wasn't around. He was only allowed to be around when Chris Bay was there before doors were opened.
He had a really good championship match with the No Limits championship match with Matt Vandergrift defending his title and defeating Jordan Oasis. Jordan Oasis has come a long way, man. Is there anything that stands out to you from when he first got, in front of your eyes to where he's gone now in terms of his growth that stands out to you as something that was, either special or something that shows you that he's trying to do things to get to that next level?
Well, the thing is with Jordan Oasis, he had success in Washington where he was, but there wasn't a lot going on at the time. Obviously, it's really picked up over the last couple of years, but, he came to us, he was training with Rikishi, kind of bouncing back and forth. And the one thing about Jordan Oasis is that he lacked, a concept of who and what he was. And, he came to me with this idea. And again, we actually, kind of sat down and, I was trying to pick his brain to find out, like, what's your deal? You come out, you with the backpack, but I don't think the fans understand who you are. He's a guy who he wrestled Damian Drake, they're friends. After the match, he basically blows off Damian Drake.
Right.
So, okay, that inklings toward, the frustration, whatever, but we don't hear from him. We don't hear him complaining about this, that, the other thing. He just disappears, and we don't see him for a few months. So now he comes back and he gets put in a couple scramble matches or whatever it was. But the perception of the fans is the Jordan Oasis they saw from a few months back. And other than kind of blowing off Damian Drake, he didn't do anything dastardly to be like, oh, fuck this motherfucker, I don't like him anymore. He was still a pretty well-liked guy. And, then we ended up doing a match based off the scramble where he worked Cameron Gates, who came across as a babyface, but he was a guy that nobody really knew. He only wrestled for us one other time. Right. And they had a match, and what happens? Well, people always are going to respond to the person they know more. So they know Jordan Oasis. So he kind of gets cheered again, even though he's working a different style, which is far more heelish than he did. So then we didn't have any openings. And during Cody's wedding, the AJ Kazana guy was in town. He works NWA. How do I not use this guy who's willing to work
Right.
at pretty much, a bargain basement rate I just want to work the show. Okay,
Right.
well, Oasis hits me up. There was nothing on the main show. Hey, we're going to do a pre-show. And then you look at AJ Kazana and it's like, this guy's a total fucking heel. Like, there's nothing pleasant about him. He's like kind of a
Right.
dick. You know what I mean? So it's like, so now these two guys are wrestling each other. And in reality, AJ Kazana is out assholing Jordan Oasis. So, of course, they're going to cheer for Jordan Oasis. So that makes it a difficult thing when you're trying to establish him. So we were
Right.
putting together the Helloween show, and I needed somebody for Matt, and I wanted him to wrestle somebody good. And it was like, okay, well, Oasis is a guy who's a good wrestler. Tall, lanky, could do some really athletic stuff. Matt's a little taller too. So, and they trained a lot together.
Yeah.
So I think it would be some good chemistry. And it definitely was. And then after they had the match, somehow Matt's gotten, both Danny and Ricky of the Suavecitos to shake his hand after the match. But Jordan Oasis felt differently about it. So it should be obvious to the fans that Jordan Oasis has changed, and he right now is all about himself. And, hopefully he'll have a promo and he'll cut one, or whether it's on Facebook or at the live, and, explain where he is at this time in his career. Because again, you could see guys come and go, and the Jay Vidals and the Matt Vandegriffs, and then guys who've been around. Jordan Oasis has been around. He hasn't been around FSW as long as a lot of other people, but he's been around the business. And, he's come here, and I've had conversations with him. So I know there's frustration. I know he feels maybe he should be at a higher level than I feel he is at.
Sure.
So again, it becomes trying to prove your worth and feeling that you're deserving of being in those big matches at the Mecca, for example, where he originally wasn't scheduled to be on the show, but because of issues beyond our control, he kind of got added to the match. When we took Jacob Austin Young out of the scramble, I needed another guy. Jordan Oasis was not listed at all. And 100% he wasn't going to be on the show. But we needed a guy. And, sometimes, how it is. That you look at Broadway plays, you look at guys in sports on the practice squad, they're good, but they're not good enough for what you need right then and there. And it also depends on what your needs are, especially in wrestling. Hey, this is the type of guy, I want to use.
Right.
And, Clutch got a pre-show match. He could have easily been bumped to the scramble, but that wasn't the style I was looking for in that scramble match. It was a no-limit style, and that made Oasis jump from not being on the card to the main roster. But I could have put a Bodie in the match. He would have fit, but then it would have screwed up the whole 8-man tag.
Right.
I could have put Sin Bodie in by moving Cody out. I could have slid Sin Bodie in, but now I would have had an off on there. So it's like, it's these puzzle pieces that there's 7 other guys that could have been used. But again, I didn't want to change one match and then have to change 5 matches to do that one match, because that would have been the situation. We had Bateman, we had Bone, they're good together. Well, Sin Bodie fit in there, but wasn't an 8-man tag. So we put him, we needed a 4th guy. He fit with Sky High. He originally trained them, and Bodie and him have worked together. And the faction of 4 guys wanted to have them on the show. So that was what needed to be done. So other moving pieces were put in different spots. So in reality, all we did was, Gregory Sharp needed an opponent, so we put Jacob Austin Young in there. And then we needed a fourth guy to go back into there, but I wanted to do a 5-man scramble. So now Cody got put into the scramble instead of the 6-man, and we added Oasis. And everything seemed to work fine. And, when you have so much talent to choose from, it becomes easy.
Yeah. And you mentioned Cutthroat Cody. Him and Chase Bell lost to Damian Drake. What do you think about Chase since he's come back from his injury? Is he starting to show signs of getting back into the form he was in before he got hurt?
I'll tell you what, I noticed when he came out, he looked to be more confident, with his look and his style. Because in all honesty, him and Clutch was the debacle. He, whatever it was, he was throwing up. He had his family there, and it was not a good showing for Chase Bell. This was an opportunity for him to have a big singles match against Clutch, who's, been a mainstay for many years. And for whatever reason, things didn't work out the way he wanted. And, he claimed to have gotten mildly concussed during the match somehow. So I kind of left him off, and then I left him off again where he was disappointed, like, oh, I'm ready to go. And I'm like, well, there really wasn't anything for you. And I figured another week or so off wouldn't hurt you. So I'd rather be safe than sorry. You're coming off a pretty miserable performance. I'm not that eager to get you right back into the mix. Again, it's really difficult when you have so many guys that you're trying to fit into spots. And sometimes, a guy that is on a high trajectory gets hurt. It takes a while to get back into the mix. Just because you feel you're ready doesn't mean you are. You're a wrestler. That's what you want to do. So when you're not put on a card, of course you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
But, I try to make everybody aware. This is how it is, guys. There's so many people on the show that you're not going to be on every show. Just like a Hammerstone's not on every show. And Chris Bay's not going to be on every show. The higher end guys, they have other commitments. They work elsewhere for more money than they work for us for. So I want to make sure they don't feel like, fuck, I got to work for Joe again, another show. I just gave up, twice as much money.
Right.
It's a little easier when Joe's asking you to commit to one of the shows instead of 3 of the shows. So a guy like Hammerstone could go out there and get his name out. I saw the thing. I don't even know where he worked, but I saw he got to work Josh Alexander, which I thought was really weird to see the Impact guy against the MLW guy. I'm assuming it was some kind of schmoz. So, I don't know what happened, but I just saw that.
Yeah. I want to get more information on that one because I just saw that as well. And I didn't have any inclination that he would be doing anything with Josh Alexander. And that piqued my interest because I'd love to see those two go at it a little bit. Damian Drake, are you finally starting to warm up to his persona now?
I've seen that persona 40 years ago. I lived it, brother. Except I was the DJ playing the music, not dancing to it. That's for sure. I was bringing joy to others in the 80s.
So do you think 40 years later that Damian Drake is now capturing the spirit of the joy of the 80s and bringing it back to life for youngins to
I think to the 50-somethings in the world, he's not. But he's not playing to the 50-somethings.
Right.
And again, when you're a persona that people like to begin with, you really have to be look at the Unguided. They kind of got booed a little bit, but because it was guys they ended up liking, they almost turned without really having any excuse to turn. They just became guys that people like. So Damian Drake's always been very popular. And Now he's got, he's dancing with the ring announcer. I think it was the ode to the old Jeff Hardy, dancing with AJ, who was Jeff Hardy this year. So, they got to do the Jeff Hardy dance together. So, the fans seem to enjoy it. And that's the bottom line. There's plenty of characters and gimmicks and things like that I personally don't see why it's that successful, but you can't deny it. And, I don't pigeonhole myself. That's why I could be 57 years old and feel that I grasp what people want to see in FSW. And the reason why we're still as successful and probably more so 13 years after we started, because I could think for what I believe the modern day fan seems to enjoy, and bringing in people, because again, when you're 25, you think, man, when you're 57, what the fuck, you're an old man, but it's like, why wouldn't I still like Metallica? Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, you learn as you grow older that you feel exactly the same way. You're just older.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing in the world. Like, how? I look at that and it's like, okay, I've been doing this 13 years. It's like, fuck, in another 13 years, I'll be 70 fucking years old. Like, will I even be alive by then? Like, that's what you're worrying more about. So it's like, unless the day hits where I'm totally disgusted, because as we say, the bad outweighs the good, and as frustrated and irritated and wanting to kill people, you still live for, hey, you know what? You just did the Mecca show, and you see the camaraderie of the fans who come to our shows. That Jace Battle got married to somebody who came to the show. Like, if FSW didn't exist, where would these people be in life? Yeah. Like, some people are, that's their soulmate. That's their best friend in the whole world. And they all met at my show. And, after all that's said and done, you think, wow, there's like a legacy of that to me that means so much more. Plus the camaraderie of all the wrestlers who've become friends, and guys that, wow, now people can say, holy shit, man, Karrion Kross, he helped me with this, and Solo Sikoa, he's my boy. And, Sepha, he sends a great video. And, he said some huge things to put me over that didn't need to be said. And, because a lot of people always felt, hey, it's Rikishi's kid. He must be a Rikishi guy. And he'll be the first to tell you, yeah, he trained a little bit there, but he became what he is today through FSW. And he isn't like, oh, my dad did this and my dad did that. And he's telling people Joe DeFalco did this and that. And most of those people are like, who the fuck is Joe DeFalco? But maybe people will say, hey, Joe DeFalco, who's this guy? Oh, Future Stars Wrestling. Yeah, I kind of heard of them. Hey, let me check this out. Maybe 3 people buy the network. Maybe 2 people fucking, buy a pay-per-view, whatever it is. And, the respect of the peers and the people that I've helped bring to places, whether it's the 1% where they're at now, guys that were never together, put them together. And I'll take all the credit in the world. I deserve that credit. But the fact of the matter is, I can take all the credit in the world. If they hated the idea of being a tag team and being there, they would have been like, fuck you. Yeah, we're going to be a tag team, and never work together. They'd be the shits and they'd be going doing their own thing again. But instead, they embraced it because that was the main company they were with that they wanted to be stars in. And they saw that as the opportunity that as singles guys, they wouldn't be champions anytime soon. Right. But there was an open door. And if they got good enough, they would be. And they got so good that they became the mainstay tag team on the West Coast for a couple of years. And now they're in New Japan. And now they're working a bunch of shows, and Royce Isaacs gets to go to Japan. And Jarrell Nelson and him are part of Team Filthy with Tom Lawler and Danny Limelight. So it's like these guys, would they have hit that pinnacle? Maybe. Maybe it would have been another 2 years. Maybe it would have been another 5 years. But maybe putting the 1% together and them taking that idea and saying, you know what, we're going to drive the shows together. Hey, I kind of like you. Yeah, you're pretty cool. Let's go work out together. And now they become best friends. That in reality, if one of them was never booked at FSW, would they have ever met in that capacity?
Right.
And would they be where they are today?
Yeah.
So in reality, I should be like the best man at like most of these people's weddings moving forward, you know?
Well, you know, what's very interesting is kind of what you said about the fact that you can put things into place and set people up for the right opportunities. And then the other thing that needs to be done, though, is that the guys have to put the work in. You know?
Yeah, we've put tag teams together that I thought, oh, this is a great idea, and they fucking hated it. So even though they trained at FSW, they never trained to be a tag team. They never had tag team moves. They never worked together. But then you got teams like, again, they drove from Arizona together. You would have thought that Hammerstone and Graves, would have done things together. They never did till FSW.
Yeah.
We coined the name Gods of War. Here's a guy coming out with a Thor hammer. Hey, Graves, get a fucking shield. There you go. We got 300 meets fucking Thor. We got the Gods of War, and that was over.
Yeah.
Tito was teaming with Rico Dynamite all the time, but he came down with Che Cabrera. Yeah, they were the original tag team. But when I always used Tito as a singles and never really, and I might have used Rico once or twice. But when Che came in, Che was a singles guy, and I felt they'd be a good tag team. And I'm not sure if I'm the first one to put them together, but I may have been, because that was when they were the Pistoleros,
right?
And later morphed into the Wolf Zaddies,
right?
Because I saw the potential, in that team.
Yeah.
So if you're a singles act and Hero and Shogun, they did a Helloween battle royal and they played the APA. And I'm like, man, these guys, they were friends to begin with. And I'm like, I saw the chemistry then. It took a long time to get them together just because, different trajectories. Hero was hurt, whatever it was. He's the up and comer. Shogun kind of surpassed him because they started at similar times, but Hero was out for over a year when he tore his ACL early on.
Right.
So putting them together, I felt that they would be, something special. And, now they've gotten great opportunities and they're in high profile matches.
Yeah. So speaking of high profile matches and opportunities, Against All Odds is the next big show coming up here on the 20th of November at the Silver Nugget.
It's not even 3 weeks away anymore.
Yeah, exactly. A blink of the eye for you. So far, what matches do you have announced? And if you don't have particular matches, who is going to be signed for the card right now?
Well, we just reinstated Nick Xander for Against All Odds. So he has been announced. He will be there. We are in negotiations. Hopefully, by the time this airs, we'll have everything figured out. But we have some big matches announced. Obviously, we have the 30-man or 30-person Rumble, where the winner will wrestle Hammerstone in the main event. Hence the Against All Odds. You have to go through an entire roster to get an opportunity. And then after going through that entire roster, you have to take on, the greatest heavyweight champion in FSW history.
Right.
And try to upset him. Chris Bay had that opportunity the first time, and he wasn't able to beat Hammerstone, but he won it the second year in a row and was able to upend Hammerstone.
Yeah.
So, we've had big matches that came out of there. I believe Matt Hardy wrestled Lance Hoyt. That Lance Hoyt actually won the Rumble. And the last three in the match, the other two were Brian Cage and Tyshawn Prince, which we put them in a match. So, we're probably looking to do something similar because right now the Against All Odds Rumble is packed. I can name off 10 guys that a lot of people can say, well, yeah, I can see Toa Leona coming back and winning the Rumble. I could see Chris Masters. I could see Carlito. I could see Hero or Shogun. There's an announcement there. The tag titles won't be defended. They will both be in the Rumble.
There you go.
So, we also have talked about a return from one of the biggest men in FSW history, former tag team champion, who's relevant. He's wrestled for us recently, but we're just, solidifying. And I'll say, Juicy Finau. He has tentatively been scheduled. We just got to confirm everything. Now he signed with MLW.
Right.
He's a guy that many people, can feel confident on picking to be the winner of the Rumble. And then there's, a half a dozen other names. Davey Richards is scheduled. Whether he'll be in the Rumble or in a match, unsure. Matt Vandergriff.
Or in the city, Joe.
In the city, yes. Matt Vandergriff is scheduled, whether it's in a match or in the Rumble. I'm pretty sure Matt has eyes on also becoming the heavyweight champion.
Sure.
Damian Drake, Remy Marcel, Cutthroat Cody, the mainstays of FSW, they will be in the Rumble. So Viva Van will be defending the women's title. And we're just locking it up. And in that situation, we feel that this is the match that many people felt should be a decisive match in both women's careers for Viva Van. But once we have to get the pen to paper before we make that announcement. So, there's so much going on and there's so many names that off the top of my head, I don't have the paper in front of me, getting old, sometimes that Alzheimer sets in. So, I'm trying to think of who we announced, who we're about to announce, who we want to keep as surprises,
right,
things like that, but Sam Adonis will be in the Rumble. So there's another guy that, can be looked upon. Big victory over Remy Marcel. Right. Brett the Threat will be in the Rumble.
There, yeah.
So, yeah. So there, it's a 30-man Rumble. So there's going to be close to. It's a little easier to fit those 50 guys from the roster onto the show.
Well, for you, when you look at that talent pool, how exciting is it for you that you're able to have a match in which the fans are going to actually, get something of a surprise, because there's nothing in this battle royal that's a giveaway at all. And there are so many people that potentially make a really good matchup for Hammerstone. Is that something that you just are kind of blessed with right now, is that you have such a good mix of the regular roster and guys like Masters and Carlito, that you can, utilize in this way, that any one of those people can win, and the fans are going to basically be guessing throughout the whole match who's going to win.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt about it. A match that we wanted to see, but because of his early commitments to AEW, Toa Leona was going to wrestle Hammerstone. Yeah. And that was a big deal 6 months ago, 8 months ago, when we were having that match. And now if we have that match, it's a much bigger match. Toa is now seen on a national basis. And, that was a match that we were really looking forward to then. So, haven't seen that match before. Would be a first-time matchup. Sam Adonis with MK. MK's always had it out for Hammerstone. Sam Adonis and Hammerstone have never had a match. That'd be a great match to see. Carlito and Hammerstone. Chris Masters wrestled Hammerstone in the first round of the defunct Mecca Grand Championship tournament.
Right.
And Chris Masters is at the top of his game. Look at him. Looks like $1 billion.
Yeah.
And Hero, thanks to Hammerstone and Graves, never got their match when Shogun won the Rumble.
Right.
And never got that heavyweight title rematch. So, for some people, they look at, he was a guy that was in line for a heavyweight championship match, and now he's a tag team champion. Well, that's a step down.
Right.
In some people's eyes.
Right.
And as excited and happy he is to be with his boy Hero Lou, I'm pretty sure Shogun, feels like he never got what he earned.
Right.
And again, between the pandemic and then the teaming with Kenny and then into the thing with Hero, Shogun has been very limited when it's come to the singles matches over the last couple of years. But here's a guy, 6'5", that, if you put together a top 10, he's got to be in it.
Right.
And then you got the scrappers and guys like, Remy Marcel, chomping at the bit. He held the title, for 10 days, 12 days. Cutthroat Cody, been around forever, has held all the titles, but never been the heavyweight champion.
Right.
Damian Drake, when does he step up? Does he, get in that situation? Thank goodness for my budget, New Japan's running that day, because we have 22 spots in my mind locked in. And that's not counting a couple people that have said they were going to be there, but we got to, double check, and once we do that. But in reality, if New Japan was available, I'm almost certain that Danny Limelight would have been for a fact been in the Rumble.
Right.
Bateman would have been in the Rumble. Tom Lawler probably would have been in the Rumble. Jarrell and Royce probably would have been in the Rumble. TJP, he was supposed to be at the Mecca, but they kept him in New Japan. Is he coming home? I've heard rumors he is. If he is, does he get added to the Rumble?
Right. Yeah.
There's so much talent because, again, he could be back, but he could be working New Japan Strong, which I just thought of in my head this second because somebody yesterday was like, oh, yeah, I guess his girl posted about he was going to be back home in a week. And I was like, huh. And just as we're talking right now made me realize, wait a second, he's worked in New Japan in Japan. I'm pretty certain because he has been working the U.S. shows that he's probably working that show too.
Yeah.
And Tito Escondido would have been on that show. Would have been in the Rumble. And Gregory Sharp would have been at the show. And Jacob Austin Young would have been at the show. And we've talked with Che Cabrera, and that would have been his return to the show. So we might have had to do a fucking 40-man Rumble with all the guys we got.
And, one person that I think that got, kind of looked over here and that potential of maybe going after that heavyweight belt again is Graves.
There you go. I guess I can confirm that now. We have reached agreement, and Graves will be returning at Against All Odds. So
there we go.
That's why I said, there's so many guys that it's easy to forget. The young prodigy, obviously, Bodie's earned his spot. 4 members of the faction. Jimmy Jack, the crowd favorite, he'll be in the Rumble. So, Joe, the question becomes, these spots are just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm actually putting together a 4-way tag as the pre-show match, just because those 8 guys would now have had me filled at the number.
Right.
So now some of those 8 guys wouldn't be in there. So we're talking the MK Army, we're talking the Suavecitos, we're talking Sky High, and we're talking about a team that was really impressive a couple months ago that wrestled for us, the Regulators, EJ Sparks, and Thugnificent. So
Yeah.
those guys, unless things change, card subject to change, but that is going to be a very exciting pre-show match.
Yeah. That sounds like a wonderful.
And maybe there's a stipulation. Hey, the winning team gets 2 spots in the Rumble.
Sure.
If there's spots available.
There's spots available. Exactly.
I wouldn't be shocked to go to 35. I'm trying to keep it at 30. But again, some people, and that's based off the students that we use on Future Shock, have probably lost spots because of what they haven't done as part of being a student and not being around when Impact's there and not helping set up and break down.
Right.
Sorry, that's the way it is. And it's like, if you got your birthday celebration and you got to work that day at Red Lobster, you know what? If you want to be a wrestler, sometimes you have to make commitments to things that you probably didn't want to have to do.
Right.
No matter what it is, I'd rather sit home and watch football on Sunday than set up a fucking ring at Silver Nugget. But if you're a student whose goal it is to be a professional wrestler, and we have 14 students and there's 6 spots, and a guy like Jimmy Jack's always around, it's a lot easier to give him a spot, and then he gets over. How do you not keep giving him that spot?
Right.
So now how do you, who's gotten some spots, get yourself more spots? Well, by not showing up is definitely not the way to do it. Because, if there's 6 spots and there's 6 of you, unfortunately, I have to give it to you because you're the best of the bunch of useless motherfuckers.
The best of what's available. Yeah.
So 1 or 2 will squeak in based on past performance of helping out. Hey, but I helped at that other show. Which one? The one in March? We're in fucking November. And I'm tired of the excuses.
Yeah.
So it's like, now an opportunity, if you look at the original list, there's going to be at least 2 or 3 people that were going to be in the Rumble. Sorry. Yeah. Don't got that spot for you no more. I had to give it to somebody who actually put in the work.
Yeah. No, that it makes total sense. And I hope that anyone listening who, no matter if you're an FSW wrestler, student, trainer, or if you are somewhere else in the country and this is what you want to do and you're training and you're putting your time and your effort and you want to become a professional wrestler, those are important things. And
that was one thing Sefa even said after he was done putting it over. He had a little words of wisdom to the young kids in the back, and it was stay humble, work hard, be a fucking value.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of them right over the head. They think they have some ability. And in most cases, they do have some ability. And sometimes you might be better than the guy who got on the show. But he checks all the boxes while you check some of the boxes.
Right. Yeah.
And when now you have to make choices, you have to look at the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's in the same role. It's like, hey, I need a guy to really take a good thumping and jobber to the stars, get your ass beat in 45 seconds. Well, you're not a guy I perceive as that. So even though you might be better than the next guy, I'm actually protecting you.
Right.
But in turn, you're looking at it as, oh, fucking Joe don't like me. He put that dude on the show over me. But he won't look at the big picture. He won't look at it realistically. He'll only look at it selfishly and what it meant for him.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a fascinating thing that, you know, I think a lot of it's the growing pains of doing something which, is putting in your dues essentially. And no matter what your field that you want to get into, uh, you have to embrace, you have to learn, you have to listen, you have to show up and do all those things, because when the opportunity is there, and you kind of said it earlier, now because of the fact that the roster is so good and so deep, if you get that opportunity to show that you can do something, you don't want to have a bad performance because you don't want to put yourself out. So, focus on all those things and make it a positive experience and try to step forward, and take those opportunities when they're given to you. And, it's something that no matter where you are in this business trying to make it, you can, but you have to realize that there's, steps you have to take to get there.
Yeah,
Um,
and here's a good word of wisdom. When we're doing breakdown Thursday and impact setup Friday and Saturday, and being a part of the crew to help them out, and then set up Sunday at Silver Nugget, and then breakdown Sunday night, to make absolutely none of them, and then admit to being the ring crew for a different local show in town, and not the place that trains you and lets you train when dues are late and puts you on shows. When I say, yeah, you need to get out there and get experience, it isn't doing it in spite of us. It's doing it at all the other times, the other 24 days a month, and in most cases 27 or 28 days a month, that we don't ask anything of you
right.
to
Yeah.
get your foot in the door with a company while you're trying to keep the foot in the door in your company.
Yeah.
You're not showing face by showing up and leaving before breakdown because you had something else to do.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
and you would think it was common sense, and you think people would be like, yeah, yeah, Joe, I totally understand. That would never happen, but it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some words of wisdom to listen to and to live by. So, as we wrap up here, Joe, any final thoughts for this week?
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of guys in town this weekend, so we're going to have a little rest, or myself a little rest and relaxation, and we're gearing up, man. Check out the names that are coming up. Against All Odds is going to be a huge show, uh, different than the gimmick battle royal, but the 30-man rumble is always an exciting match for the fans. You know. It's always a time to bring back, a name from the past. I remember we did the Hall of Fame ceremony, and Tyshawn Prince, for the first time in probably 7 years, came out and became part of the Rumble. So you never know, who you're going to see. A name from the past, a former Hall of Famer, a former WWE Hall of Famer. You never know. Make the call for the Godfather, see what he's doing that day. And we got a lot of Vegas talent on hand. Greg the Hammer Valentine, come on down. So yeah, it's going to be a huge show, and it's something that everybody always looks forward to. November
Yeah.
20th, 5 p.m. Silver Nugget, or sorry, the Hefe Bet Event Center. I'm going to
And
see. You might be able to bet on who's going to win the Rumble. I'm going to see if they're going to put the odds up for us.
yeah, if you could get odds going, that would be fabulous to see there. Um, uh, and remember too, if you're not in Vegas, Fight TV, you can definitely get Against All Odds. You can also order the replay of the Mecca 8 pay-per-view that happened last weekend. So
yeah, we got big news since we're part of Fight Plus, where if you pay $5 a month, $4.99 a month, you get access to the pay-per-views of a lot of the major companies. And yesterday, GCW, as well as Sammy Callahan's Revolver and Black Label Pro. So please sign up if you haven't yet, because that's more money coming my way with more subscribers, baby. Who knows? Now I might be able to afford a Bobby Fish. You know what I'm saying?
So that's the whole thing. It's if you put in that $4.99, and maybe we can get enough people across the country to put in that $4.99, that Bobby Fish can come in and it'd be like Bobby Fish versus who would you choose? Who would be the one FSW person you could see going head to head with Bobby Fish?
Well, any of the champions in reality, him and Matt Vandegrift, him and Gregory Sharp, him and Hammerstone, they would all be good opportunities. Hey, if you spend enough money, maybe we could bring in Kyle O'Reilly and Red Dragon could wrestle, either TBD or the one night reunion of the Unguided. Who knows?
There we go.
Maybe I bring in Eddie Edwards and you have the Wolves against Red Dragon. So, there's so many options on the table.
We got to get the Wolves in here at some point, man. You got to get Eddie going.
Well, he's a little more, I guess you could say, pricey.
Seasoned.
Yeah, like if he was, the difference is, Eddie will work for more, but he'll probably almost definitely be at the show.
Yeah.
So, but I have a good feeling, Davey's excited about it, and he's made the shows in the most part, and he's had reasons for why he couldn't. The day before our show, he had a show 15 minutes away that he couldn't make, and it was cursed anyway. That's where Royce and Jarrell were. They worked at the same show, and they couldn't get a flight home. So, maybe it was just not meant to be. Maybe it was meant to be that we had Rhino show up instead.
Right. Yeah. And, and it's fun to, to joke about it. But, the only reason the jokes are made is because Davey Richards is such a good dude. And is gives 110% when he's in town and is part of the FSW show. So, with that in mind too, remember FSW Network, $6.99 a month. Go and sign up and watch the Helloween show. Check it out and see Spider's impersonation of Joe, taking it full circle. So
there you go. I have to talk with Ben. I know he's been really busy with his gout, so need to talk with him. Maybe we're going to offer a special. You order Against All Odds on the pay-per-view. Send us the receipt, and maybe we give you a free month of the FSW Network. I think that might be a nice little promotion to pass on down to the fans.
Well, there we go. I think that's something that could be in works. So definitely keep your eyes and ears peeled on social media for and too. If we have any further announcements on that, that would be a great advantage to check out the network for the first time if you haven't checked it out. So, all right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in this week. And until next time, everyone, take care.